Ah, the heroes. You are persistent, aren't you?
Welcome, friends of the grummles, to Shinies and Luckydos once again. My name is Vaski, and in today's video, we'll be diving into the lore of classic WoW's Wailing Caverns, a super vast network of underground caves located in the Barrens. Honestly, this is one of my absolute favorite dungeons from back in vanilla, and I can't wait to be covering it for you guys. So let's dive right in, shall we? Over 10,000 years ago, the Barrens was home to a verdant forest, known as the Central Wilds of Kalimdor. The Kaldori had made it their duty to watch over the natural world, and the land known as the Barrens was no exception. That is, until the War of the Ancients. Queen Azshara summoned an entire army of demons for her lord Sargeras, who slaughtered many of the wild gods of Azeroth and razed the forests. Finally, the implosion of the Well of Eternity left the Barrens as we see it today, a rocky, sun-scorched desert. In his search for a way to return the Barrens to the lush landscape it once was, a druid named Gnarlex discovered a network of underground springs which stretched for miles beneath the parched savanna above. He named them the Wailing Caverns for the mournful howls made by the wind and the steam as they coursed through its depths. As a high-standing Shan'do of the Cenarian Circle, Gnarlex formed an expedition to explore the caverns and solve the mysteries of its waters. It was customary for druids to commune with the Emerald Dream by hibernating deep within the barrow dens, and Gnarlex believed that by tying himself to the land of the Barrens, he and his acolytes would be able to siphon the dream's energy to restore life to the area. The druids created a number of small oases where plants and animals could thrive. Somehow, the gas bubbling up from the subterranean caverns could create life from nothing. Unbeknownst to the druids, these waters also carried with them a hidden taint from the Emerald Nightmare, and a malevolence infiltrated the caverns while Gnarlex slept. Gnarlex's connection to the Emerald Dream became a conduit for the corruption itself, and the flora and fauna of the Wailing Caverns began to change. Its waters turned foul, and the once docile creatures inside metamorphosed into vicious, deadly predators with magical abilities. The Kolkar Centaur clan quickly took up residency in the now corrupted Oases, where one leader is stationed at each. The RPG, however, tells the tale of a much smaller centaur tribe called the Krenka, who discovered an entire new subset of Wailing Caverns dungeon that has never been seen in the game. The trout of the surrounding pools are also transformed, becoming deviant fish. Though they are a mature trout, we learn from the RPG that their growth was stunted by the transformation magic they radiate, and as a result, these fish are a measly 2 inches long, while regular trout are a whole foot long. They are known to produce various effects when consumed, which must be a result of the same transformative magic. It's also stated that deviant fish can't survive more than a day outside the Wailing Caverns, and that shortly after they die, they lose their transformative powers. So this suggests that the magic of the caverns actually sustains their life as they die once it fades. Much of the natural wildlife of the caverns fell to the deviant corruption as well, the raptors being the first. Even Verdun the Ever-Living, an elemental guardian born in the Wailing Caverns, has fallen prey to the nightmare. The only exception appears to be Kresh, an uncorrupted turtle who can be found wandering aimlessly through the caverns, not even having realized what transpired around him. Trapped within the caverns, some of Gnarlex's acolytes were driven mad by the same taint as the wildlife. Seeking to remake the land to match their own twisted dreams, they took up a new mantle as Druids of the Fang, as their serpentine visions seeped out from the dream as countless snake creatures. Scarlet Leaf, who later became Lady Anacondra, had been the first to join Gnarlex's cause and was the first to fall to the nightmare. She was followed by Arin, a warrior who converted to the druidic arts and who took the name of Lord Pythos once he fell to the corruption of the Wailing Caverns. Next came Gnarlex's childhood friend and personal guard, Jarlaxla, who was renowned for his mastery over many animal forms. The twisting of this unique gift with shapeshifting allowed him to perfect his snake form, and thus he changed his name to Lord Cobran. Serpentis, who was Gnarlex's brightest pupil, desired to one day become a Shan'do. His aspirations were warped by the insidious nightmare, and he became Lord Serpentis, leader of the Druids of the Fang. The last named Druid of the Fang is Bohan, although not much is known about him, as he is not one of the Fang Lord dungeon bosses. He appears as a rare spawn that can be found outside the dungeon entrance near the small pond. Thankfully, not all of Gnarlex's expedition fell to the madness of the nightmare. The remaining acolytes can be found above the Wailing Caverns entrance inside a small cave. One of these is Ebru, who is likely the strongest of the druids trained after Gnarlex's fall, and oddly enough is the one druid who keeps the rest of them together. Ebru was described as a male night elf in the RPG, but in-game appears as a female. She is young, but when she gives orders, the other druids listen. She lacks the grim view of the situation that the older druids have, as well as the eager simplicity of the younger ones. Now, despite this, she still must be quite old, as one of the drops from Encourage for druids are called Gloves of Ebru, which may imply she fought during the War of the Shifting Sands. Now, she hunts in the Wailing Caverns, piling up the bodies of monsters and collecting gruesome trophies. She welcomes anyone who wishes to hunt beside her, and feels that if they can cleanse the caverns of monsters, they're one step closer to healing the barrens. She, herself, focuses mainly on killing the deviant raptors, believing that their creation was the first thing to taint the caves after Gnarlex's descent into the nightmare. Ebru sometimes clashes with Lhok, who also stays near the caves, but the druids are so drawn to Ebru's fierce optimism. Lhok can also be found in the cave alongside Ebru, where he focuses on keeping the deviant creatures contained and away from the barrens. He's one of the older druids who escaped the fate of his companions. He mourns their loss and refuses to leave the caverns, feeling that sense of responsibility to aid how he can. He accepts any druid willing to join the group, believing that simply surviving long enough to find the group is enough of a test. He is a tired yet determined druid, happy to train new recruits until the time comes to rescue Gnarlex. He collects deviant hides to craft into armor, as he believes their leather may be the only good that comes from these otherworldly beasts. A leatherworker and a trader can be found alongside Lhok and Ebru, who sell recipes which make use of those hides. An exclusive armor set known as the Embrace of the Viper can also be found in the caverns. This purple and gold set embossed with serpents is brilliant for low-level druids. I'd imagine it is perhaps made from the same hides of the deviants as well, judging by its properties. Despite their camp's attempt to contain the taint, others in Thunderbluff catch wind of what has happened in the caverns and inform the Royal Apothecary Society of the Undercity. They have stationed Apothecary Hellbrim at the crossroads to investigate, who asks adventurers to collect fungal spores growing out of the oases. He renders them down to an emulsion, which must be taken to Thunderbluff immediately. It seems that the magic of the emulsion will begin to fade once removed from the caverns, which means the fungi are of course afflicted by the same mutation as the deviant fish. We take the fungal mixture to Apothecary Zama, who, at the behest of her Dark Lady, is also seeking a rare, potent flower from the dark recesses of Wailing Caverns, known as Serpent Bloom. Once picked, this herb releases tiny serpents, and Zama believes it could potentially be used to further the goals of the Forsaken. By this point, the Druids of Thunderbluff could no longer ignore the reports of strange magic leaking into the Barrens, and had sent Tonga Rune Totem to the crossroads at once. Upon his arrival, Tonga noticed that the land seemed confused, like it lay dreaming and could not awaken. He attributes this to the strange oases which had newly sprung up, and sends adventurers to conduct some tests on their waters. Upon placing some dried, dead seeds into the bubbling fissures of the oases, the seeds magically spring to life. Tonga then wishes to study samples of altered snapjaw shells so he may determine the magic's effects on the local wildlife. Upon realizing the oases are connected to the Wailing Caverns taint, Tonga has adventurers take his samples to two of his clansmen for their counsel. Firstly, we find Mura Rune Totem in the Sepulchre, where she is trying to heal the land. She confirms the inner glow of the snapjaw shells and hopes that they may help her to save the dying silver pine forest. We also bring some to Hamel Rune Totem, the leader of the Tauren Druids and envoy of the Cenarian Enclave on Elder Rise. Hamul tells us that he saw the Druids of the Fang in his nightmares, whose twisted goal is to remake the land in their own image. The nightmare terrified him so much that he fled and did not see the entire vision. He sends us to speak to Nara Wildmane, a young druid raised and trained in Thunderbluff. She did see the entire vision after Hamul fled and was the first Tauren to reach out to the Night Elves regarding Naralex's fate. She has traveled to the Wailing Caverns several times and has the battle scars to prove it. She works closely with Nalpak, sending eager young druids his way to lend what aid they can. She believes Naralex was right in his theory that the Wailing Caverns hold the key to healing the Barons and is intent on saving him however she can. She sends the adventurers to slay the corrupted Fang Lords, who each carry a dream gem, hoping this will give her peace from her own nightmares. Adventurers will fight their way through deviant wind serpents, raptors, and oozes on their way into the caverns, and may choose to retrieve crane operator Bigglefuzz's bottle of 99-year port from a stealthy goblin known as Mad Maglish. It would appear that the cavern's magic has had an effect on Maglish, who has since been hiding here with all of his stolen possessions. Bigglefuzz chased him all the way back to the caverns from Ratchet in an effort to retake the port, but refused to go into the caverns after Mad Maglish. Another goblin from Ratchet by the name of Meebok Mizyrik would also like something from the caverns. He's noticed that the raptors of the Barrens seem a lot smarter than other raptors, and wants to concoct whatever is increasing their intelligence into a drink by mixing it with wine. I wonder if he's trying to make his own Kaja Cola. His first mixture is called Raptor Punch, but it wasn't exactly a success. Instead, he decides to make his smart drinks out of some whaling essence from the ectoplasmic oozes from the caverns, which he believes is responsible for changing the plants and animals in the area. Adventurers can find large masses of oozes deeper still in a grotto called the Caverns of Mists. Geysers erupt from the central pool, creating a heavy mist in the air. A rare hydra named Trigor the Lasher can sometimes be found in the water among the Threshodons, similar to the rare hydra named Grasherahan, who can be found in the Lushwater Oasis. Upon entering the caverns, the adventurers find Muyo, an uncorrupted disciple who has been trapped deep inside the caverns. He seeks a way to free Naralex from his slumber and hopes that slaying his troubled brethren will allow him to try to awaken his master. When adventurers return to Muyo, he asks them to accompany him through the caverns to the place where Naralex rests. Along the way, he conducts a ritual to banish the spirits of the former Druids of the Fang, then continues further into the caverns until he reaches Naralex. Here, Muyo begins his final ritual to awaken Naralex. However, as he does so, Naralex's corrupted dreams are given form. We are first swarmed by serpents, then oozes, until finally, from the depths of Naralex's mind, his deepest fears are turned into a living nightmare. An aberration known as Mutinous the Devourer takes the form of a Murloc, Naralex's greatest fear, and following its defeat at the hands of the adventurers, Naralex finally awakens. He and Muyo depart, seeking rest from their ordeal, while the adventurers pick up a brilliant green shard from Mutinous. Though solid, the glowing shard has what looks like smoke swirling just below the surface. You can't help staring into the depths of the crystal, and at the same time, you know there is something very disturbing about it. Adventurers take the shard to Ratchet, where the goblins send them to a druid named Fala Sagewind. She tells us that these types of gems are often used by druids to hold dreams, and are crafted from the pure essence of the Emerald Dream itself. This shard, however, holds nightmares. With this knowledge, Fella sends the adventurers back to Hamel Rune Totem in Thunderbluff, where he peers into the shard and quickly dismisses the adventurer with a polite but ominous message. Thank you for delivering this to me. It isn't wise to speak of things such as this, though. I advise you. These are matters that you should not concern yourself with. Let's just say, things in the Emerald Dream are not as we thought. Perhaps, in the future, our paths may cross again. Little did the Druids know, Archdruid Fandral Staghelm of the Night Elves had been manipulated by Xavius to corrupt Teldrassil with the Emerald Nightmare. To keep the Cenarian Circle from finding out, he had sent the Druids far away from Teldrassil, ordering them to search the world for the source of the Nightmare's corruption. Though Narlex's mind was now free, he could remember nothing of what had taken him from this world. Fandral forbade the Druids from returning to the Barrens, stating that even arid places served a role in Azeroth, and thus the story of the Wailing Caverns ends here for now. Well, that covers the lore of classic Wailing Caverns so far. We hope you enjoyed, and if you're interested in hearing of the rest of the story, we'll be going over what becomes of the cavern since Cataclysm in another video. We'll also be covering the entire classic suite of dungeons in this series and would love for you to stick around. We have links to our Twitch, Twitter, and Discord in the description, and if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe. It's always a blast to have you guys tune in to us, and we can't thank you enough for being a part of our community. So, once again guys, farewell friends of the Grummles, and may your feet find good trails!